Hey Woodturners, I'm Captain Eddie Caskell and welcome to my shop. Yeah, it's Blue Glove Day because we've got a project on the lathe. Now let me tell you what happened. I started this a couple of weeks ago for a club project and we hollowed it. And then I came back yesterday, which is late in December, and I finished hollowing and I got it really thin. And I decided I'm going to put some color on it. I fired up the camera and got started with the process. I scraped it to open up all the pores, and I'll explain what that's all about. And then I put the dye on, and then the weather kicked up, the power went out. When it came back on, all the stuff I did was gone. So we're going to kind of start and walk you through what happened, and then what we're going to do to put a little color on this piece, because color can be key. You ready? All you got to do, pardon the glove, watch. To recap, this was a block of poplar, very much like this, except it didn't have this nice stain in it, which is actually a lot of punky wood, as you can see. It's going to cause me a little problem when I do make something out of this. But this is a piece. Now, I shaped it and then we hollowed it with a captive bar hollower that Big Eye Production sells. And we got it really, you can hear it, really thin. I mean, so thin that all that stain on the outside is bled through to the inside. Now, I got it really thin and then I scraped it. Now, I scraped it using an 18 millimeter round scraper, carbide scraper, pardon my reach. This is a scraper I used. Yeah, it's one of my 18 millimeter tools. A couple of weeks ago on a Ustream, I explained that when you scrape, what you do is open all the pores evenly. You see, when this was being shaped, I was riding the bevel along, and as I was riding the bevel, I was compressing these fibers, pushing them down and making them slick. Oh, it was nice. A lot of guys would have thought, boy, I buffed that little 400 grit and I can put a finish on it. Really, that would be the wrong way to go, because those crushed fibers are going to move. They're going to relax, they're going to open up, they're going to make a difference in the finish from here to here to here to here to here. It'll all be different. So I wanted it all the same, so I scraped it with the 18 millimeter scraper and I got it really open, wide open. It's not smooth, it's just open. More of this in one moment. Thank you for being patient with me. It's just before Christmas. A lot of calls, a lot of sales. We ran completely out of 3 shapes of cutters, and I just got a shipment in this morning, and management's in there right now repacking them so they can get out in the mail this evening or this afternoon to you. But let me tell you what I did. I colored this, I scraped it, I got it wide open, all the way open. It's actually rough to the touch, because the scraper didn't give me a slick finish. It didn't rub the bevel. It laid it open, it shaved all the fibers back to a common area, or a neutral area. Once I got it that way, I went ahead and dyed the piece. This is a blended green and blue dye from this product. Artisan Dyes, Craft Supply sells it. This is a 8-ounce bottle. It runs $15–18, I believe. This cuts with denatured alcohol. So I put about an ounce of this in a mason jar, and then I added about 3 ounces of denatured alcohol, and then I brushed it on here very liberally. Yeah, I can talk. And I'll let it soak in. Then I took a cigarette lighter, the only reason one of these is around, and I set it on fire. And it burned off a good bit of the alcohol. Now, the dye was still on there, so I'll let it rest. it was good timing because that's when that storm hit yesterday, and the power went out, and it really couldn't. I couldn't do any more out here. Took it off the lathe so it didn't get stained from the jaws. Set it on the side. Today I'm returning and I'm telling you this fascinating story because it's fascinating to me. All right, now it's died. It's completely died, and you can see by the way it's picking up trash and everything else that everything will stick and be on it because it's rough and it's open. But this is when we start moving on to the next grade of dies. I learned this from Phil Irons from England, and I forgave him for being from England. It's okay, you know, those rebels. I learned that you start with the darkest color that you're going to have on a piece, and then you add your progressive colors if you're going to add progressive colors to get where you want. So now we have the green on here. We're going to sand this with 80 grit paper. Yes, 80 grit paper. I'm using the Open Weave product, and I'm going to get the sanding on that. All right? For the sanding, I chose this product here. It's an Open Weave. It's similar to, but not Abernet. And it's 80 grit, and you'll start seeing some radical differences in what I've got up here. I'm using an isolation pad or transition bed. The goal is to remove the heaviness of the green, let some of the wood shine through again, and then add some accent color. As you can see, most of the blue or the blue-green was sanded away. The chatoins, that's the chatoins. You see it right there, the cat's eye is still with me. Now, this is a red artisan dye. 1 ounce to 2 ounces of alcohol. And this goes on next. And right now, this has got an awesome looking color. Don't forget to do around the mouth of the jar really well. And you don't do a lot that'll bleed over, because sometimes the runs don't look as good as the rest of the piece because it soaks in there and just gets uneven. So with that in mind, we lightly brush it on. I use a chip brush. These are these throwaway brushes sort of from Home Depot. I have these specially made in Indonesia just for this. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. Honestly, it's the cheapest throwaway brush I could find. Foam doesn't work out really well for this, so I use the chip brush. No holidays, no gaps, no runs. Just make sure it's all brushed in there really well. And then move the dye, the brush, the applicator, away from the lathe. Get your lighter, and you don't even see it right now, but it's burning. Well, it's alcohol. So you might be able to, no, you really can't. The alcohol, the excess alcohol is burning off. And you don't want it to burn so much that it leaves soot or burn tracks on the piece, but it does help relieve or remove the excess oils from it. Now, if you put dye on the inside, do not put the match there or the light there. It'll scare the wine out of you. It is just going to pop and flash and spark. I'm going to let this rest about 5 minutes. It's winter time. I'm 64 years old. I got to go pee again. I'm back in a minute. So you with me? Well, you didn't go with me. It's not like the ladies at the dinner that go together. I went and, well, I'm back. Okay. It's colored in. The red and the purple. Now, I got it. There's some purple used to it, but it's still heavier than I'd like it to be. But the grain is showing through, and because I didn't sand it before I stained it, it's now got a nice uniform color. Now we go to 120 grit, and I'm going to sand this down, but this time I'm going to stop back about here on the back side and let that stay a little darker because I want it to fade up. I'm 120 grit. I'm using the same product. This is going to become available to you real soon, this product. And when it does, I'll tell you where and how much, but I guarantee you, it will be reasonable and you will like it. A little bit of clogging is going to happen, but I'm not going to push it hard, and I can clean the paper off. I'm again using the pad to get a more uniform, instead of getting the finger grooves that I would get rubbing it. I'm going to continue to sand this out. The clogging I told you about. The beauty of this product, it cleans right up. Now, as you can see, the cat's eye is still flashing through. I do have some color bands in it, and it's looking really good. Now, it's time, if I've got some spots that are a little bit heavy that I want to clean up a little bit or rub out, now's the time to take care of them. And we're going to go on to the next color, which is going to be a yellow or a gold. I mixed up a little more transtant. I like these little flat mason jars. Maybe they're it says maybe it's a quarter pint, or I don't know, but they're nice and flat. They won't tip over. You don't need more than 2 ounces or 3 ounces of this product at any time on most projects, so it lends itself for storage too. And then we look at, oh man, you see what that gold, that yellow is doing to those colors. Now I just slathered on a good coat of the yellow, had a phone call or two come in, and I left the jar open. It is just denatured alcohol. There was a whole lot more in here when I went to the phone than when I got back. So, learn from my mistakes. Close it. And if the lid doesn't seem to be closed really tight, put a piece of wax paper over it before you lock it down. Now, I've got the teal, and then the red, and now the yellow, and you can see, maybe you can see it this time, a little bit of flaming going on here because it soaked in pretty good. And I'll burn off some of this excess alcohol, but we'll have to wait for some of this to dry up a little bit more before we get into the final coat. But you can see from a very plain and simple looking piece of wood. Playing with stains a little bit, we can get to this. Now I'm going to let it cure up a little bit, and then I'm going to sand it. And last time we sanded it was 120. We're going to go to 180, sand it, and then we're going to see if we want to accent it a little more yellow or gold on it, and bring out some more that you look. The chatoyance is going to be awesome. It's going to go right through here, and if you understand this is end grain, side grain right here, and I'm still got a good bit to go for sanding, but we're going to go 180, 220, 320, and then put some sealer on it, and then go from there. Okay? I think in this shot you can see we've got the red, the green, and the yellow kind of blending across, and it's starting to give a really unusual color to this piece. Now when we get all done, we're going to squirt some black thickened airbrush paint in the inside and roll it around to make this opaque, very opaque. Now I say thickened, when I talk about thickened paints, what I'm talking about is I'll take the airbrush paint, pour it out into a little cup or something, and let it sit out in the air in the room to lose some of the moisture and get a little thicker, congeal, okay, or dry out. And that way when I put it in and roll it around, it won't tend to leach through the soft points. I told you I made this thing very, very thin. I mean, you couldn't read the newspaper through it, but you could see the comic pages. So the key is I wanted it to be light, I wanted it to be thin, I wanted it to have excellent color and a little bit of lift in it, and I think I have all that in the design. So far it's gone where I want it to go. Okay? I'm through the 180 grit. It's looking really good. I don't think I want to add any more color at this time. I like to clean the paper off before I put it back in the stack, and I go right to 220, and I'll just work my way up the grits a little bit more. I've got some 240. That's pretty close. 180 to 240 is 60, 60, 180 is the third. I like to take half steps. The 180, the maximum, I wouldn't go to 320 because that's more than a half step. Half step would be half of 180. 270, 240 is in the range. Common grits would be a 220, and then a 320, and then a 4, 6, 8, etc. So, and why? There's no real reason except I do know that by the time I get to 600, I won't have any scratches in this finish. I would have eliminated scratches in proportionate steps. This is looking good. I'm going to continue, but first, a word from our sponsor. I get this a lot. Guys say, you say a word from our sponsor and then it's you again. Yeah, this is a production of Big Eye Productions. This is what we do. We turn wood. And we try to make turning wood more enjoyable for you. So we have some great tools, some great opportunities for you. We have got carbide cutters that fit most of everybody's carbide tools. They're all fairly uniform. Most of the folks got into the business, jumped into the business using cutters made for other parts of the industry. And they just made tools for them. Well, we've got those cutters. And we have those cutters at remarkably low prices. But here's the deal, and there's always a deal. We sell cutters in packs of 3. But 3 of my cutters cost you a whole lot less than 2 of the other guys. That's right. That $16 cutter, I wouldn't hear of it. I've got $8 cutters. That's my most expensive cutter is $8. And I have a whole bunch at 6 and some at 5. So I've got great prices on the cutters, and I've got great cutters. Do you want to know what I have and if it'll fit your tool? Get out your caliper. just that simple. Get out your caliper, go to your tool, measure the cutter, read it in millimeters, go to my website, this address. Go to this website, go to Cutters Only page, and look for your cutters. Now, if you don't have bars or you want to do something else, products and services, I've got combos all over the place. And I do sell a la carte. You know what that means? That means if there's a combo with 6 cutters in a bar, and you don't want those particular 6 cutters, we'll try to amend it to make it work to what you want. Now, if you pick cutters that cost more than the ones in the kit, we give you the retail markup and the difference. That's all. And we ship by USPS, and we charge you exactly what we pay and no handling fees. You know what a handling fee is? That's like going to the grocery store and having to pay the cashier to put your stuff in a bag. That's a handling fee. I'll put your stuff in a bag for free, and then you just pay to get it to you. All right, check it out. www.eddiecastellan.com. I'm going to get back to sanding because I don't want any marks left on this. Back to my pad. 240 grit paper. Rock and roll. It was a time to change things up. What I mean by that is I've been sanding round for round and round. And I should have used the oscillating sander or the self-propelled, but I did it just holding the pad. Now, I see that I've got a couple of marks on it that look concentric. So I want to make sure they don't carry through by stopping the lathe and just doing some, just like that. Make sure that those concentric marks go away and we don't have anything echoing through. Here's the deal. If it shows now and you can sand it out, you can get rid of it. If you throw a splash of finish on it, you'll probably keep going and say, oh, well, you know, don't settle. Know all well. Get rid of the marks in the beginning and keep going. I might splash this a little bit more yellow. In fact, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Time to get the gloves out again. I added that splashy yellow, which actually made it a little more golden. I'm going to 320 grit Thiasoft paper to knock it down. This conforms easier to the piece and it cleans up. You don't say anything about that, okay? Now, much nicer. Really getting some unique looking coloring to it. What am I going to do? Sand it with 400. Clean it up real good. Make sure there's no holidays in the finish or some bubbles that may pop up because of the cooking and all. I'm going to go ahead and rub it all out really good. Be happy with it. Then we're going to seal it. And that's critical. Really happy. I buffed it with 600 just now to see if there was any little spots on it that I wanted to catch up on. And I'm happy with the overall look of it. Scratches I would look for would be scratches that would show through. But this is going to be the real litmus test. And this is when I put a sealer on it. My sealer of choice is right here. Deft Lacquer Sanding Sealer. Now I choose this over the stuff that's sold in some of the big box stores There's a Minwax product out there and a few others. Read them. Most of those are made for going under a polyurethane. We're not using poly. We're going to go super glue finish on this thing eventually. So I want to use a good sealer. And a good sealer is a sealer that seals good, heavy. Well, it sounded redundant, didn't it? But it's got a lot of solids in it. It does a good job. It lays out and it can be worked. So what I've done is mixed it up into the squirt bottle. It is 1/2 of the sanding sealer and 1/2 of the vehicle, which is lacquer thinner. I use a blue paper towel. These are available at Home Depot and big box stores. They're made by, I believe they're made by Scott Towel 3M. Scott Towel. They're work towels. They don't break up as much as the little cheap white ones. I want a good coat on it, and I want to work it in. Okay, I need that. Now, here's the deal. You're not going to get what you want out of the first coat. You're going to be putting 2 or 3 coats on it to get it where you want it at. Figure that in the beginning. You can't stack enough solids on the piece in a first coat deal. It's impossible. So I'm going to rub it in, and I want to make sure I get that edge right there. I'm going to rub it in all over. Let it breathe for a few minutes. I can do nothing to enhance it. Spinning it doesn't enhance it. You can't do anything with a heat gun or a light or anything. It takes time. It's a time thing. So I'm going to let it soak in and set up. Cure. And then I can go ahead and sand it out a little bit, buff it out, but this gives me a peak at completion. Because when this is on, I will see the scratches, the gouges, the grain tears, the imperfections in the finish will show now, right now. And I can decide how to fix them. Not if I'm going to fix them. I got too much time in this. I'm going to figure out how to fix them. It's a waiting game. It's that time again too. I'll be back. Time passed. About 15 minutes into the first process, I went ahead and slathered on a second coat. I didn't do anything between coats. What I wanted to do is build up the solids. Now I will buff this off. I like a Scotch-Brite, not the green but the yellow. And all I want to do is remove any trash or imperfections in the 2 coats I've got on here of sealer. That's it. I didn't try to remove the sealer. I didn't use sandpaper because sandpaper would remove the sealer. But I'm almost ready for my super glue coat, my high gloss CA finish. And I would get that by making sure that my sealer is complete and uniform. The key to that CA finish is it sits on top of a finish, which is a sealer. It sits right on top. Now, if there's holidays in this sealer, there's going to be holidays in my CA finish. And this piece is really, really going to sparkle when we put the CA on it. But only if this finish, the sealer, is very uniform. Because I'm with cross grain, I've got the possibility of dry spots here and here. So I want to make sure I've rubbed in my finish. I have it built up. And then when I start my CA, if I get a holiday, I'll stop, sand a little, and correct it. Now, while we're talking about finishes, and I did this work over the lathe bed, I want to talk about that because guys write me all the time, Cap, what about your lathe bed? Well, look at my lathe bed. It's fairly clean. I just splashed a little sealer on it, but I can get that off rather easily with some lacquer thinner, right? Well, yeah, but I don't really need to. The same product, the same thing I used to just now put it on the piece or clean up the piece will buff it right off the ways and get them slick as glass again because I'm coating it with this product right here. Check that out, Glide Coat. In a circle up there you see Bostik. Bostik makes this product. I understand you can order it through your local Ace Hardware store and you can get a can of this stuff. Now, if you have someone in your neighborhood or your area that does machinery for wood turning shops, sharpens their blades and stuff like that, they probably have this. Because this is what you put on your table saw table and your fences and your drill press plate, and your bandsaw plate and stuff, because it keeps the surface slick. But it's not that WD number product, and it's not silicone. It is a surfacer that dries up, doesn't mark, and doesn't transfer. Doesn't transfer to your pieces, so the piece you go to finish tomorrow doesn't have a trace element of this and doesn't accept finishes. That's what happens with the WD and some silicone products. They track off onto your work. Glide Coat. You want to see it again? One more time. There it is. I am not going to be selling this. Can't ship the aerosol. It's just like the glue thing. Right, we're getting close to starting the CA finish. Real close. At this point, the sealer is the third coat, buffed off with the Scotch-Brite like I showed you. And then I took my accelerator, sprayed it on a scrap of towel, and wiped it down. I didn't spray the accelerator on the wood. Always have to say that. Always. There's no shortcuts to this. And then with my EMO2, which is the thin or super fast thin super glue by Starbond, and they will sell this to you. Look it up, Starbond USA in CPH International in California. Now, a little bit, and we start to coat. We never back up. We don't go over it again. We don't try to stretch it. It has its limitations. It takes a little while, but you end up with a deep, rich looking piece. A lot of color, a lot of flash, a lot of gloss. You may think to yourself, how much of a finish can I put on it when I just do that one wipe? A lot more than you can imagine. And it doesn't take a lot to get a good finish. So we'll do that and put about 6 or 8 coats on it. And then I'll sand a little bit, give you a peek at it. I'm going to continue this on because this is going to be one great looking piece. I've managed to put about 5 or 6 good passes on it. I'm back to the accelerator onto a piece of towel. Now, you ask, why did I accelerate it? I wasn't accelerating it. I was setting it. I was setting the finish. Now, a couple of things would happen. If I sprayed it directly on it, I'd get some blotching in it. Or melt the finish, because what's in the accelerator tends to destroy the finish while it helps accelerate it. But the acceleration properties help me to set the finish, and then I can see if I have any major holidays in the sealer. Where I was afraid of it, I don't have any holidays, and I'm getting a really nice finish on the piece. At this point, this is about an 800 grit. I would take 800 grit paper and do an oscillation on it and buff it down. When I'm looking to remove these rings, you see some of these rings? There they are. Right? Those are just voids and from one layer to the other. And remember, when these layers are going on, as I'm wiping it over, that glue's drying in 1.3 seconds. From the time I started here and got to here, this glue was dry. If I went back or pushed on it, I would wrinkle it, disturb it, upset it, make it mad, whatever, but it wouldn't be as good a coat as if I just went over it, went back in about a minute or two and did it again. That's why you can do 10 or 15 coats in 15 minutes and do a little sanding. I would take my 800 grit Sias off, just go sit down and take the ridges off. That's all. You can do it while it's spinning on a machine, but you won't reduce the ridges nearly as nice as if you did it with an oscillating mode. To just go around, and you can see I'm knocking the high points off. I don't want to concentrate on it too hard. The finish is very thin, but if I keep stacking on those grooves, it's going to actually start looking worse than it could. And this works nice when I got all the finishes on. I can do this with a little bit of water, but if I do a little bit of water now, any water that gets into any cracks will cause the super glue to frost up or turn white. We don't want to even take the chance of that happening. So we're going to go ahead and just buff this out. Gives me an opportunity to work on this back side, make sure it's as uniform as the front side. This whole thing. This is going to be a nice piece. I keep saying that, and every time I take it off and play with it a little bit, I like it even more. So I'm going to finish this up. When I get it all done, I'll post a picture on Big Eye Productions Facebook page to show you how it came out. And while I do that, you and yours have a very merry holiday season. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Hope you're safe, you're warm, and you find the ones that love you. I've had a great year. Thanks. And I'm Captain Eddie Castellan, and you join me as I was making shavings. You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to really like this piece. You know I was going to say that, didn't you? We agreed you wouldn't say anything about that, right?